Joe, Dan, thanks for joining us once again here. As you know, this is more of a post-mortem situation with the Patriots. Let's go ahead and start with that game, because there's also a lot of Belichick stuff we want to ask you about, too, with his press conference and everything. But let's just start with the game, the spectacle that was Orchard Park on Sunday, and the way the Patriots responded to it. What were your main takeaways from that game?
Yeah, the reality is they were going into a tough environment naturally because Buffalo, but everything that happened with Damar Hamlin and his recovery and the emotions attached to it, the Patriots were going into a place that I give them a lot of credit. They played really good football as a football team outside of kickoff. But,
right.
Without those two, and we talked about this on NFL Live a little bit this week, like without those two kick returns, man, that's an absolute down to the last moment game. So, I thought they played a pretty darn good football game when it came to everything they had to go handle. And, Josh made some incredible throws, one on the run, one deep ball to step that really won him the football game outside of the returns.
Certainly the best offensive performance. I think the starters have strung together on this team. What jumped out at you about the offense? Like, where was this offense all season?
6 weeks ago? You want to go back to 6 weeks ago and when I said some stuff about play action? I think the game was very similar to what they did against Minnesota as far as success, I remember watching the game and watching that. I think it was that second quarter drive where because I was in the moment thinking, dude, Mac just ran 4 play action passes in a row. And I think 6 out of the 8 plays on a touchdown drive or play action, I actually sent out a tweet going, well, look at that. Bunch of play action down the field, and they go and score a touchdown. It was definitely that world. They excelled in that when they called it, and they called it a decent amount. I actually thought it was probably Matt Patricia's best game of the season when it came to the feel for play calling and whatnot. Devontae made some plays in those opportunity throws. I don't know where this offense is. I can tell you, this offense has been, locked in a box. They just haven't done it. And I don't want to – you guys don't have me come on the show to sometimes speak in simplicity, but I think that's a relatively simple point is they just did not do what they were the best at this year enough on offense.
So it sounds like you're saying, Dan, they finally got it right, and they should bring all the coaches back and run it back next season, yes?
Absolutely not. We've talked about this. I think that this offense has got a chance to still be a good unit. It was a below average unit this year, and they've got to figure out some stuff in their offensive line. And I think Wynn's a free agent, and they still need a perimeter player that can win consistently versus one-on-one coverage. They don't have that guy right now. But there absolutely needs to be a new coach. There's no way that you can go into a third year with a quarterback. The downside is it's going to be his third offense in 3 years. But the reality is he's intelligent enough to learn a new offense if that's what the new offensive – they need an offensive coordinator that has a proven track record of running good offensive or good offenses in the NFL. Obviously, I've thrown out Bill O'Brien like many have, Kliff Kingsbury. I did this on live yesterday. The difference between an exclamation point and a question mark. Last year, there was an exclamation point attached to the Y from Mac Jones. I know why we are calling these plays. And this year, there was often the question mark. Why are we calling this play? And it's not fair to him. And if you as an organization think, well, he's going to be the guy, then there's no question. It would be lunacy to run it back.
So we're talking to Dan Orlovsky from ESPN. Dan, I'm not sure if you saw this report that was out there this morning, a conversation between Mike Florio and Chris Sims about Mac Jones reportedly reaching out to people outside of the Patriots organization, asking for help with how this offense could operate better during the season. Is there anything on its face there that is so egregious to you about that is offensive, maybe back to Belichick, or the way that disrespectful to the chain of command in Foxborough?
No. I don't know where they finished in their offensive rankings, and I know some of those numbers get skewed depending on is it points per game or points per play or all, whatnot. But the fact that the quarterback realizes this is not good enough and wants to figure out ways to make it better, that's an appealing trait and an encouraging trait. I just don't think that it is, one that needs to be under Matt Patricia and Joe Judge's reign. And I'm not saying fire these guys and they're out of jobs and whatnot. I'm just saying you have to bring in an offensive coordinator. So, no, I like the fact that Mac wants to address what wasn't good enough this year and try to figure out ways and tap into other resources and advice from people who maybe have been a part of other ones that have been successful.
Dan, when Bill Belichick was asked about Mac Jones' future, he said that Mac Jones has the ability to play quarterback in the NFL. If a coach answered a question about you that way, what would you think?
Thank you for confirming the obvious. Again, I've said this before. When Coach Belichick says stuff, I don't put a ton of weight on it because he never says anything. I think that he fits Mac Jones fits exactly the way that Bill Belichick has played football for a very long time and had a ton of success in it. And with the right people around him and the right coaching staff, you win a lot of games with Mac Jones. I'm not going to tell people that he's a guy that you win a lot of games because of, but you'll win a lot of games with Mac Jones if he's handled the right way. So
going back to the offensive coordinator position, assuming Patricia is not back this next season,
yeah.
And Bill O'Brien is the obvious name. It's out there so much, but what about Kliff Kingsbury? Because I did see you tweet that yesterday. I wonder if Pats would bring in or consider Kingsbury as OC. Do you think that is a realistic option?
I do. He obviously has a tie to the organization, having played there. The reason why I say this about Kliff, I don't think that Kliff needs and or wants a running quarterback as much as the history of his offense has had. That's the reality of college football. I also think this, the reason why I attach Kliff to it a little bit is I can make the case that years ago, Nick Saban played offensive style or viewed offensive football in a certain way. And he realized, okay, that's not good enough anymore. I got to change. And that's why he went and hired different play callers for his offense and tried to get a different offensive system built down in Alabama. We know that Coach Belichick and Nick are tight. And I think that Kliff is a smart enough coach. And also the things that I hear about Kliff Kingsbury as a person are phenomenal. Those are just what I hear. And so you want to pair him with a guy that's very smart and an offense that is a little bit unconventional and difficult to have to handle and allow maybe a new type of philosophy in New England to try to kind of revamp this late career run for Coach Belichick.
What are the odds, though, that Kliff is getting, he's getting paid by the Cardinals for a few years, that he wants to just, take a break from the world of the NFL because of everything he just went through?
Yeah, I think coaches like coaching. I think once you get into that world, you're a coach, so often. And those guys are competitive. They have a ton of self-confidence. There is also the reality, like, Kliff's still young. It's not like Kliff's going to hang it up now and be done. And it's a place where you can go, and we don't know who the future head coach is going to be there. And I think it's a good place to try and go rehab some of the narrative around you. If you're a coach, certainly in an offensive mind, it's all if you believe in Mac Jones. And if you do, and he's a guy that really challenges his quarterbacks intellectually, he's going to be getting paid either way. So you might as well be doing what you love.
How many more years do you think the Bill Belichick-Mac Jones partnership will exist for?
I hope for many more. I hope if nothing changes, it won't be much longer. It'll be another year, if that. If nothing changes at their play caller spot, I think if he, makes the tough decision to make the proper moves, I'm hopeful that it's for years to come, as long as Coach Belichick is coaching.
With DeAndre Hopkins shaking loose, how much of a difference in Mac's development do you think that would make, having someone like that on the field for him?
Yeah, I could have Jalen Hurts answer that for you. I could have Josh Allen answer that for you. I could have Tua Tagovailoa answer that for you. Those guys are difference makers. They make everything easier for the quarterback. Am I throwing it to that guy pre-snap? Can I or can I not? And if I can, more often than not, I'm going to throw it to those offenses. When you have a guy like that, you build your offense through him, and they change everything. They change how defenses prepare, how defenses align, not only in the pass game, in the run game as well. Look at Philadelphia. Watch how many times Philadelphia runs towards A.J. Brown's side, because defenses have to put extra defenders deep to that side. That means there's less people down towards the football. So I'm a huge fan of Hop. I think he's still got a lot of good football left in him. I will say this. there's a lot of really good receivers that come out of college football nowadays because they're so much more prepared to play because of all the 7-on-7 reps they get as teenagers. So it's always, how much is it going to cost you worth the risk conversation.
All right, let's take the coaching out of it for a second, Dan, and let me ask you, looking at this roster top to bottom, what's the first thing that needs to be addressed personnel-wise?
Yeah, they got to get a perimeter player on offense that can win consistently versus man-to-man coverage. They don't have that person. Jacoby, I think Jacoby's a guy that can win consistently versus man in the slot, but he's not going to be a guy that threatens you with some of the explosive elements that are needed in college football and in the NFL nowadays. You got to get a guy that can kind of create chunks versus man coverage. So I think that's step number one. Step number two is fixing the offensive line. The offensive line was not a good pass protecting offensive line this year, only in play action. So you got to really figure out your tackle position. The tackles were a disaster this year. The tight ends are the tight ends worth how much you're paying them? I can make the case no. And so you got to figure out what you want to do with those two tight ends, and if you're using them in the proper manner.
All right, we'll leave it right there then. Dan Orlovsky, it's been great talking with you this season. I'm sure we'll continue to hammer this offseason for the Patriots. It's a big one, so thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.